want to start off this week's episode with a story. Been a while since we've done one of these.
Story time with Uncle Dave.
So I remember when I went to my very first Comic-Con, like it was yesterday. For those that are maybe new to the podcast or have not listened to episodes where Matt and I have talked about kind of where we met, I grew up in a small-ish town by most standards called Erie, Pennsylvania. It was at one point the third largest city in Pennsylvania, but that's still relatively on the small side. We didn't have comic conventions in Erie, Pennsylvania. So for me to go to my very first comic convention, I had to go out of town. And I remember going to a comic convention in Buffalo, New York in the dead of winter. It was just in some hotel, like in the big conference room of the hotel. I remember walking down the hallway to the conference room and walking by Tony Hawk.
Really?
This was pre Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. He was not there for anything Comic-Con related. He just happened to be in Buffalo. I saw him and I said, "What's up, Tony Hawk?" And he said, "Hi." And I said, "What are you doing in Buffalo in the winter?" And he said, "Just hanging out." That was the extent of our exchange. And I kept on. I walked into the room with the comics. I was absolutely in awe. I had never seen anything like it before in my life. Just tables and tables and tables of comic books and action figures and statues and, artists drawing stuff and prints for sale. It was an incredible experience. I don't remember the name of the Comic-Con for the life of me. This was, 20 years ago or something. I was still a teenager, dating myself. Man, I chased the dragon on that feeling, and I still do today, because there's nothing quite like going to a good Comic-Con. And I've been to all kinds. That one was kind of a mid-sized con. I've been to really small regional conventions. I've been to, bigger mid-sized conventions. I've been to some of the big ones. I've been to New York Comic-Con twice. I've gone to Dallas Fan Days. I don't even know how many times, 4 or 5. It used to be called Dallas Comic-Con. Now it's called Dallas Fan Days. For those that aren't aware, Dallas Fan Days is, I think, at one point it was the 4th largest con in America. I don't know if it's still the 4th largest. I think they may have lost that crown. But the topic at hand today, and the reason why I start with another romanticized memory of comics past, is I want to talk to you, Matt, about sort of a shift in, the landscape of the comic convention, and how really the bigger cons are pop culture conventions. They're not comic conventions. They're called Comic-Con. San Diego, New York, Dallas Fan Days, whatever Chicago's is called. I don't remember what it's called. It used to be called Wizarding World. It used to be called C2E2. I don't know what it is.
C2E2 is one, and then there was Wizard World Chicago, but I don't know if that's still a thing.
I said Wizarding World, didn't I? I want some Harry
you
Potter.
Sure did.
I meant Wizard
J.K.
World.
Rowling. You sure did.
No, we don't say that name.
Okay.
We won't get into it, but if you know, you know. And if you know and disagree, sorry about you. But anyway, those conventions are, and especially Dallas Fan Days, they are so much about celebrity appearances and meet and greets and photo ops. I used to kind of give San Diego and New York a pass because there's a lot of news that gets announced there. They've become sort of summits of the greater pop culture industry, and it is what it is. You're in New York City, you're in San Diego. Those are easy places to get a lot of celebrities together to do things like panels or whatever. But having been to New York Comic-Con more than once, I can also say with confidence that is still a convention about comics. It's not solely pop culture, but the more you go, even some of the mid-sized cons, the more you see the pop culture influence permeating those. I went to a really small con earlier this summer. I forget the name of it, but even if I could remember the name, I wouldn't say it because I don't want to disparage anybody publicly. But it was a smaller con here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. and I walked around for maybe 40 minutes and then just left because there were maybe 10 actual comic retailers at this convention. The rest was like pop figures and other non-comic related things. And again, there's nothing wrong with these things.
Yeah.
It's just not, to me, it's not like the comic convention in its pure form. And I'd probably sound like a grumpy old man, wishing for the days of the past. And I own that. Yeah, I am, I guess, in some capacity, but I don't know. I've been rambling on for some time now. Matt, what do you got to say about it? We're going to freeform this one. I don't have any specific points to make. And I think worth noting, so Matt was in Dallas Fort Worth hanging out with me for the last like 5 days. He went back to New York yesterday. We did go to a mid-sized con yesterday. We're recording this on Monday the 24th. We were at Cowtown Comic Convention in Fort Worth, Texas yesterday, Sunday. It was phenomenal.
It was very good.
I'll let Matt speak now.
Oh man, I have a lot of thoughts. So yeah, I mean, I think I would agree with you on the whole in regards to comic conventions and kind of the makeup of them, especially the larger comic conventions. I would agree with your assessment as well too. Like, you kind of got to give San Diego and New York, San Diego, I think more so maybe a pass, because that's become a pop culture, event now, for announcing movies. When Marvel and DC did actually have booths, their booth would be there. They'd have the Infinity Gauntlet so you could come gawk at it, or they'd have the Batman and Wonder Woman suits and stuff like that. So I mean, I get that. And San Diego's also like 4 or 5 days. It's like a long thing. So that's more of a celebration of like nerd culture. So I get it. New York that we went to a couple years ago, there was definitely more comics than I maybe even expected. I like seeing all the like statues and stuff. I was taking a million pictures of stuff.
I love that stuff.
I also am like a comic head, so I want to see, when I go to a convention, I definitely want to see retailers and I want to see some tables. But I understand the whole pop culture related stuff as well too. So we went to a couple of smaller conventions, but I did go to Wizard World Chicago one year, not C2E2, but Wizard World Chicago, with my one friend's dad from a comic shop. I talked about him, Pat. We actually went, and there was like a lot of comics there, and it was awesome. And like there's a lot of comic book related guests. So that's like one thing for me. There's going to be a lot of celebrities, but are there going to be any comic related celebrities, or they're not celebrities, comic related artists or writers? And there was a lot of that in New York Comic Con. Now, granted, this was a number of years ago, so I'm probably dating myself there as well too. But like I got to meet Neil Adams there, and like Neil Adams was just like kicking it, and like some of his stories that he wrote for DC, and like the historian in me, like I was like, man, I have to get something. So I bought a print of his that the Speedy Green Arrow cover, and he like signed it, and like he came up and like busted my balls for a little bit, but like was a really nice guy and was just like, thank you for coming up after busting my balls, and like signed it to me and everything. Like, was like an awesome dude, man. And like, unfortunately he recently passed away. So I'm like really happy that I got that poster from him. And, I used to read a lot of the G.I. Joe books, and I listened to a podcast, and Ryan Atkins was the artist, and he was there, and I got a sweet Snake Eyes print, and I got that. Like, that's kind of what I'm looking for, as well as like comic book stuff, because we're comic book heads. Are we going to accept, I don't want to say we're fossils, but are we going to accept the fact that you said it before, that the culture has moved on? The next generation, they're not proliferating these properties through the comic book medium. It's through movies, it's through video games, and it's through everything else. And that's just the direction that these things are going, unfortunately.
We've said that, and I think I'm probably the one that says it the most often, and said it that one time that you're referencing on this podcast. However, I don't
However,
know. I don't know how closely you were paying attention to the other attendees yesterday at Cowtown Comic Convention.
okay,
Um,
break it
there
down for
were
me.
there were a lot of young people browsing the bins, looking at paper comics, looking for specific issues. Not a ton. I mean, it was a very widely attended convention, at
Yes,
least on Sunday, in terms of age range. It didn't seem like any demographic was really out attending another, and I was
that's good
pleasantly
though.
surprised at the number of young people buying comics yesterday, which I thought was pretty cool. Um, maybe these are people that are just looking for like a couple issues to own of something that they like in another medium. To your point, but maybe holding a paper comic for the first time gets them to buy some more. Who knows?
So for me, like a big thing about like convention, like when we were at your house and we were sitting around watching a game or whatever, I'm plugging stuff onto my app. I like to go to those conventions for deals. Um,
Hmm.
I think if a parent knows that one of those comic conventions is coming up, why would you go buy like a $5 Batman comic when you can go to one of those conventions and get them for $2 or $1? We had surprisingly, there's one at our Jewish Community Center here in Rochester. Like it is like that is an awesome venue. Like their temple and all that is just great. Like there's a temple connected to it, and it's a beautiful facility. And like I went into this just like, oh, it was like a $2 admission. Like it was kind of like a Cowtown situation. I'm like, oh, it's not going to be that great. But I went in there and like, dude, I was overwhelmed. It was straight like comics. Jim Shooter was there, which was cool. I should have met him because Jim Shooter's awesome. He's kind of a bit an asshole, but he had Marvel Online when I actually like to read it. But regardless,
Also responsible for one of my favorite areas of comics,
Valiant.
which is
Yep.
Valiant in the '90s.
Yep. So I probably should have got some Jim Shooter stuff
He
signed.
messed
But
up.
yep, I know. But straight comics, dude, and really good deals. Like I
Yeah.
went to that convention and there was like recent back issues that I was missing. And I'm like, well, why do I even have a pull list? I'll just come to this thing because they had like everything. So you're getting it for like half off.
Yep.
Um, what I learned yesterday is, and we kind of talked about it, is like I need to start getting into like I don't know why I'm in such like a 90s phase, but I need to pick some 90s comic books to collect because if you go to those conventions, you can get a lot of those issues for like $1. So that's
I got 25 Valiant comics from the '90s that all comics I don't have yet because I'm still trying to fill in a bunch of those runs. I got 25 of them for $12.
yeah, like that's
We're
the
buying in
value.
bulk.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's like that is where you want to be. So that aspect in the comic culture and the collecting culture is awesome. You get that at a convention. Um, there's a lot of I know you're not into it, but there's a lot of like variant covers at these things that are cool. You can find variants. Our one friend is a Scotty Young collector, so I found a lot of Scotty Young stuff. Honestly, too much. I didn't even send him all of it because I didn't want him to be overwhelmed. But I like going to these conventions because comics are not they're not a chain. They're not a Walmart. So when I fly out to Texas, I might find something there that I can't find here, or vice versa, or just a different con. It's good to bounce around. Like it's weird. Certain areas order certain more comic, a more particular comic, or shop to shop even. So that's I just love. I think we both do. You could talk about this, but it's pretty much what we do at comic conventions. It's all about the thrill of the hunt and going to the LCS and getting stuff, or going to a convention and finding that comic book you've been searching for forever. That one of
Mm-hmm.
those grail issues of that TMNT run you've been looking for, and you find it in a bin. And heaven forbid you find it in good condition at like a reasonable price. Like that's what you want. That's where you want to be.
So you're saying a lot of good things because we were just at a good con that had a lot of comics.
Okay. Yeah.
However, that has not been the norm. And I go to at least 2 to 3 a year down here because there's
Okay.
so many smaller regional cons that occur. And I can tell you with the utmost certainty that what we attended yesterday was not the rule. it was the exception.
So my question to you is that because of what you're collecting? You're collecting something so specific, like that
No,
TMNT run
no,
you're
I'm
trying to
saying
close
when I
out?
go to these cons,
Just in general.
if there are 60 vendor tables, less than 30 have comic book back issues or comic books
Okay.
at them for sale.
Not even stuff you're
Everything
looking for,
else
just in
is
general.
other things. It's other random vendors. It is pop figures. There's like 10 pop figure booths every time you go to one. It's all pop culture stuff. It's not comic related, but we call them comic conventions. We
So
call it some whatever. It's a regional comic convention of whatever. Pick your name. I don't care. Name that's a sponsor or whatever. Our comic convention. Yet less than 50% of the available things there to purchase are comic books, and that's where I start to take issue. Because now I've driven here, and in DFW, no drive is short, as you're now well aware. You're lucky if it takes you 20 minutes to go to where you want to go, but typically for these, I'm driving 30 to 45, maybe an hour each way. Plus, I'm paying for admission, and then I get in there and I spend half an hour walking around, and there are hardly any comic books to shop. Yet you've tricked me to come here under false pretense that this is a Comic-Con, and it was not. Dallas Fan Days, same deal. They've fooled me 3 years in a row now with this. They always talk about how there's more vendors. I mean, I guess that's technically true, but these additional vendors aren't comic vendors. And I did get a couple of TMNT key issues that I was missing this year at Fan Days. And by couple, I mean literally I got 2. I was there for an hour. This is the 4th largest convention in the United States. I was there for an hour. I spent more time commuting and walking into the venue than I did inside looking at things, because it was just, their show floor is enormous. And I'm not exaggerating when I say half the show floor is dedicated to queues to meet celebrities and queues to take photos with celebrities or other people. It's literally, you literally pay for Dallas Fan Days so you can go and meet a celebrity, and that's it. The other things are ancillary to the experience. And that may be, my frame of reference here may be that I'm just in the wrong part of the country for what I want to be experiencing at a Comic-Con. That's why I wanted to talk about it, because to me, it feels like we're losing, the heart of the comic convention, which would be the comic book.
I think this was that Fan Days you said that was formerly Dallas Comic-Con. I think for the comic books, like, well, one, I'm sure if you were tied into an LCS, they would have some good local conventions you could go to. I'm just saying.
I know about the local conventions. I'm in multiple
saying.
Facebook groups. I'm literally in a Facebook group called Dallas Fort Worth Comic Cons. The only thing that gets posted in there are small regional cons, and there are thousands of members. So one, you're wrong. I'm well connected, regardless of whether I drive 45 minutes to an LCS. I hear about all of them. Try again.
Like, you're a little jaded. I think you need to open up I think you need to start collecting something else. This TMNT run's burning you out. You need to start collecting some variant coverage, I think. It's like,
I'll never do that. I'll never do that.
Imported. These are, you can just, I can smell the Texas on them. Smells so good. Transported really well.
For those not watching on YouTube, Matt is holding up variants he bought yesterday and smelling them.
They smell so good. I can smell that pastrami.
They smell like they're going to sit in a box, never to be seen again.
No, I'll hang them up.
The ones in my house would smell that way, which is why I don't collect them.
That's true. Yeah. I think in our area, like, there are good comic book related conventions. Like, I've been trying to get Sheridan to come up, because there's one in Buffalo that is just like, it's comics, and like, we've been to the store. He came up for like a weekend, and we went to this store, and it's like a warehouse, dude. Like, just, you would love it. Just comics. And they do a convention in there. It's like a warehouse, and then there's an additional like side, and they do that, and they open it up for the convention. So I've actually had pretty good success between that and the Rochester show that I was telling you about at the community center. I've had some pretty good success with local comic conventions. I think the bigger you get, you're right. The bigger you get, they feel that they need to draw celebrities in. If you get a massive location, I'm sure you want to try to maximize that dollar.
The big ones, though. I'm talking about the regional ones too.
So I think the ones in your regional, then the ones I've been to are more comic book related, and at least in upstate New York. I don't know.
Okay. And I went
Yeah.
to I went to I think one or two when I lived in Ohio. What was it, 12 years ago at this point?
That one at the bowling
Um,
alley, bro.
and that one was
My
decent.
first one. That was
Yeah,
my
your
first
first
one.
one, your first. I forget what the name of it was. North Coast
Uh,
something. I don't know. I
Comics,
don't know.
baby.
But
Nachos and back issues. That's what if I got the Infinity Gauntlet there.
but
Nachos and
I
back.
went to another one that wasn't as great, and I went to one in Syracuse that was when I lived in Syracuse. Um, but I guess my frame of reference is limited to the states I've lived in. To be fair,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I don't get me wrong. I still like going to a convention, but I'm sick of being disappointed when I get there that there aren't as many comics to look at. Like I want to be, if you're
Yeah.
selling me on a comic convention, you're charging me 10, 20, $30 entry to something called a comic convention. You better at least have 50% of the show floor be comic books, or I
I
am going to be upset about it. Not that
no,
anyone cares about me being upset.
no. I think that makes sense, and I think you're justified. I will say, I think it's for you to drive. Your 30 minutes is like me going to Buffalo. Like your 30 minutes is way more stressful than me driving to Buffalo to go to a convention, though. Too like your 30 minute, dude. That what I experienced. Like me driving an hour and 10 minutes to Buffalo is nothing compared to like Buffalo and rush hour traffic is nothing compared to you driving 30 minutes. I would be aggravated as hell if I had to go through that traffic and then come back and then there was nothing there for me and the $10 admission into the show, like I would be equally as frustrated for sure. That is
I
not worth your
appreciate that.
time. No, but like seriously, no, like that is driving. Hoping you come back due to all the crazy people on the road. Like that's a stressful proposition to come back empty-handed from. So like I get that. And for me, I can go to some conventions like 15 minutes away. If it's a dud, I turn around and come back. For you, it's minimum 30 to 45 minutes. Uh,
I appreciate
that plays
you
into
enabling me to feel this way.
no, yeah, I'm not like
I like
I'm
that.
not really trying to enable you, but
No, but you are, and I appreciate
that's
it.
just okay. Well, that's just human nature. Like I'm just saying, if I did that, like I'd be like, what did I'd literally just sat in traffic for 40 minutes and burned more gas. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. Now,
I think that's a part of it.
I still like, I enjoy going to a convention I've never gone to before, even a small one, because like going to a new shop, you never know what might be there.
Yeah,
I've just
exactly.
noticed more often over the past several years that when I get there, it's not a comic convention anymore. It's a pop culture convention.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with that. I just wish people would be upfront about what it is.
yeah.
Because New York Comic Con, in my opinion, New York Comic Con is the template that any mid to large sized convention should be following, which is our core is comic books, but we also have a ton of gaming, and we have a ton of retailers, and we have a ton of collectibles, and we
Their
have some
artist alley was
celebrities.
insane, dude. Their artist alley
Yes,
was great.
we
Like
have all of those things, and we have enough of each one of those things that no one that comes for one of those things as their primary reason would be disappointed when they get there. It's just about, you just have to have enough of everything. You have to have the right balance of things. So when you draw this diverse group of people into your convention, no one is left feeling left out.
I mean, that I will not. I met Scott Snyder at that con, and then also bumped into him on the way out. Like I will not disparage that convention at all. I got nothing but love for that
I love New
place.
York, man. I can't wait to go back.
Yeah,
New York's probably my favorite con that I've ever been to.
yeah,
If you've never gone, I urge you to save up the money. Find a friend in New York that you can stay with for free, because it's too freaking expensive otherwise. And go to New York Comic Con one year, because it is absolutely the best con you'll ever go to.
yeah. And I like how they had things like partition. Like there was like definitely the comic book area. There was the entertainment area.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a video game area. Like it
Yeah,
all
it was
they
all
they
just done right.
they logically made sense in how they had everything laid out as well too. So
Yep. 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 So, uh, we've been going for about 25 minutes on this.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Gosh.
Do you want to talk about any comic related news from the last time we talked? Anything that you want to share?
Man, I've kind of been in the dark, to be honest.
So have I. I
the
mean,
only-
I've
the
spent
only
the
re-
last 5 days with you, so I know everything that you would know probably.
The only I did want to talk about just real quick. The only thing I wanted to update is our conversation 2 podcasts ago about DC Infinite Ultra, I believe. You had challenged me and asked, were the books like were they since that time of that update, that Monday or whatever, Tuesday or whatever, were books from last month up and running? And I said, no, I think it's just like a couple select titles. We looked after the podcast, and no, that is not true. Comics literally from last month are up there.
Yeah, literally
So
everything's
that's like
on
an
there.
awesome.
I'm almost caught up
Oh
on
my
Batman
gosh.
already.
Are you really?
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
Shadow War was good.
Okay.
You
you haven't started the Zdarsky stuff yet.
No, that's next.
Okay, that's what
I'm on the first issue of his run right now.
Okay, I'm interested.
Yeah.
Next week.
Shadow War was good. The
Okay.
reveal of who did the deed, I was kind of a letdown, to be honest.
Okay.
I don't know if you've read it or heard what it was.
So I got Shadow War Alpha, the Batman issues, and Omega. So now that it's on there, because I was just like, I'm not buying Deathstroke and Robin and all these books.
Right.
So it was a very
Did you read
disjointed
those
story.
issues?
I did. It was a while ago. I don't remember. Was it Talia?
No,
I can't remember.
It was some random superhero I never heard of named Geostorm.
I don't. Yep. Clearly, I didn't get the whole story. So.
Like it was Talia's fault.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, but
Geostorm did what he did because of Talia.
Yeah. So clearly, I didn't get the whole story, but that's going to be changing now that I got Ultra. I'm just gonna read
I don't know if it needs to change, to be honest. You got the broad strokes.
Not that specific storyline, but just in general. Moving forward, I can read all the tie-ins and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right.
But no, nothing really crazy popped up on my feed, but I haven't been in it like I normally am.
Yeah,
I was enjoying
the only news I've been paying attention to is the New York Jets and all their injured players. So, but I bring this up because in the not so distant future, we're going to start doing a little more of a focused podcast episode every week. So if you're still listening, almost 30 minutes into this episode, we'll have our key topics every week. We'll talk about that topic. Then we're going to spend 5 or 10 minutes talking about whatever news happened in that week. That'll typically come from Matt because he pays way more attention to that stuff than I do. I get my news from him as it stands today. So that'll just be primarily Matt and me, giving my 2 cents here and there. And then we're also going to just talk about what we're reading at the time. We were doing those full episodes. We call them like 4 for 4 or whatever. We would just talk about, we each talked about 4 comics that we've been reading. But rather than do like a full episode dedicated to that, we're just going to talk about that every week. And it doesn't have to be 4. It'll just be, I don't know, whatever we're reading that we want to talk about, that we're enjoying, whatever. Could be 1, could be 2, could be 3, but we'll keep those to, 5 or 10 minutes as well. So the episodes may get a little longer on the whole because we'll have these 2 weekly segments now in each episode. But the goal is to be a little more regular in terms of content and a little bit more on the episodic side of things. So hopefully that's interesting to you. If not, you can always just stop listening every week after we're done talking about the main topic. That'll be okay too.
You're going to want to stick around.
I mean, unless you don't like us.
Well, then, yeah.
Or if you don't like comic book news.
Well, we're in trouble then. So
or if you, I guess we'd be in bigger trouble. It probably wouldn't be here from the beginning either if they don't like us. I don't know, man. I think we're pretty likable dudes. People should stick around.
I would say so.
And modest, which is also a key component to being likable. And with that,
there's nothing to add there. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say.
No, I don't have a grand wrap up. This one was kind of free form. and a little bit last
I like
minute,
this
'cause
though.
we were actually going to record an episode in the same room together while Matt was here, and the time got away from us. We were just too busy eating barbecue and driving around Dallas Fort Worth.
The commute got away
Yeah,
from
the
us.
commute killed the in-person episode recording plan, but that's okay. Maybe we'll do it in 2024 when we're reunited.
Maybe.
We'll see. So you can follow us on Twitter. I will follow you back. Someday I will get a follow from Twitter from one of these episodes. Maybe not today.
I've
Maybe
gotten
not
a
next
couple. I'm
week.
actually pretty excited. So
Well, they like you more than me then, because ain't nobody following me on Twitter because of these podcasts. But our Twitters are in the description of this video or audio podcast. So you can follow us there if you like. My name is Dave.
and I'm Matt.
We appreciate y'all's time, and we'll talk to you in a week. Bye-bye.
Peace.